Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being early on time this morning. We're going to get started very shortly, but just before we do that, I just want to make sure that you can actually see my screen and you can hear my voice. So could I ask you to do me a favor, please? If you can see my screen, if you actually can hear my voice, just type into the question box a little yes, or just raise your little hand on your control panel there, just so I know. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Okay, so hi everyone, this is Rudy Janssen here. I'm the coach at ACOA. Now, we run a black belt coaching program exclusively for accountants who are determined to make a change in their practices and in their lives. And I can see that quite a few of you on here this morning. I can recognize your names. We've either met before or you've been on presentations before, so welcome back this morning onto this next one. And for those of you who I don't know yet, hopefully we'll get to know each other much better during this presentation. So today we're going to take a deep dive on how to find more introducers for your practice, strengthen your client relationships, and extract yourself from the day-to-day operations much more than what you may have been doing up to this point in time. So a couple of things before we get started. I call these the 3 gets. So the first get is make sure that you've got the tools that you're going to need. So you're definitely going to need something to write on, to make notes as we go, something to write with, maybe something to drink, some tea, coffee, juice, water, whatever it might be. Second get here is get rid of any distractions. So make sure that your mobile phone is switched off. If you've got a PA, let her hold him hold your calls for you. I want you to give yourself the same gifts that you give your clients every week. And that is some uninterrupted time focused on you and your business instead of the world and all its needs. And I hope that's okay with you. And the third get is get yourself ready. So here's the thing. I know that the information I have for you could be a pivot point for you in your practice, and it could dramatically change your practice. And I reckon the only thing that'll stop that today is how you show up here. This morning I got up early, I went for a walk, I've got a strong black coffee here next to me, I've got some water, and I really want to give you my A game because, that's how life works. If you bring your A game to this, you will get the most out of this morning. It'll be an absolutely brilliant investment of your time. So a quick question then. What feeling or emotion could you bring to the next 90 minutes? Because we're going to be together for around 90 minutes here this morning. And what is the one emotion that would give you the most out of this morning for you to bring along? Would it be, I don't know, joy, fire in your belly, intrigue, passion, intensity, whatever that word might be, but what is the one word that you want to bring to the table for yourself to enable you to get the most out of this morning? So I'd love you to type that into the question box there for me, because if you've been on here before, you'll know it's quite an interactive webinar presentation we have here. So go ahead and type that into the question box, chat box, whatever it's called on your side, and let's see what that word is for you. Tim would love to know your word. Nisa, hey, welcome back on again. Let's hear your word as well. Okay. Carl, welcome on this morning. Let's get your word as well. Desmond, John, let's get your word as well. Okay, great. We got Nisa saying motivation, Mark, intrigue. Jonathan says having fun. Excellent. So let's get from the rest of you as well. Good. Okay, fantastic. So let's get on to the next slide here then. So our journey this morning. I'll take a quick overview of this journey we're going to go on together and how the session's going to work. So firstly, a bit about my style. I'm originally from South Africa, so I still have a very obvious South African accent. Also, I talk really fast, so I'm going to ask you to listen fast. Also, I'm going to give you the straight truth. I've been working exclusively with accountants for many years now, and I'm going to give you what works and what doesn't work. Just the straight facts. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'll tell you what I've seen about how to grow your practice and leverage your time. So I do believe we're going to have a good time this morning, and I very much want this to be interactive. Not because necessarily I think it's fun, but because I have a lot of stuff planned this morning, and I want to find out where you're at and what you need right now. And as we go along, if you type that into the box, then I know exactly what you need, and I won't just give you the generic presentation. So my request to you is let's make this interactive, because it's going to help both of us. And frankly, it's way more fun. You know, it's kind of strange at your end, sitting there listening to a computer. And let's be honest, it's a little bit strange on my end. You know, here I'm standing talking at my computer. So if we could make this conversations backwards and forwards with you and I think it's going to be much more fun, and it's going to help us all be much more engaged and get a much better outcome from this. So if that's okay with you, please go ahead and just type a yes there into your chat box, your question box on your control panel, and then I can know that that's okay with you, because we are looking for interaction this morning. Okay, fantastic, excellent. Okay, good. So on to our next slide here. The content today, really simple. Number one, I'm going to show you why you're working on a broken model and why this model is costing you thousands in profit and hours in time every year. Then we can look at my 6-step process for finding introducers that want to refer business to you. Number 3, we're going to look at how Octopus Management helped one of my clients who's a 4-partner practice from Liverpool go from chaos to control in 60 days in their practice. And then we're going to take a deep dive into customer service and how you specifically can strengthen your client relationships, because that's a big, big key. And so if I had to summarize what our goal really is today, then it's how to find more introducers for your practice, strengthen your client relationships, and extract yourself from the day-to-day operations. So I'm going to give you everything I've got in the time we've got, and at the end I'm going to show you a system where you can take all the material we cover and install it into your practice so you can get results even faster. So I just want to check in, does that sound okay? Are we in the right room? Are we having the right conversation? So again, do me a favor please, just type into the question box for me, sounds good or good to go, or just a yes, and that'll let me know that you are ready. So you just go ahead and type that into the chat box there. Great. Okay, fantastic, thanks very much. And on to our next slide. So what's the number one outcome you want from today's webinar? Because you see, I don't know what got you where you are today. I don't know your backstory yet, and I'd love to have a conversation at some stage. But regardless of what brought you here, let's start with these questions of, you know, what's the number one outcome you want from today's webinar? Help me understand what is the number one thing that by the time we finish here, that you could go, wow, I'm so glad I attended that. So what's the number one outcome you want from today's webinar? So go ahead and type that in there, and let's see what that is for you. And again, this helps me also make sure I'm on the right track with my delivery to get the content that you want. Okay, so Nisa says, streamlining everything so I can extract myself and do something more fun. Nisa, absolutely, it is absolutely possible. I've had plenty of clients who've gone through this process and done that, so it is doable. John says, find more introducers. Good. And John will definitely show you how to do that. Carl says, new ideas for client service. Okay, we'll definitely touch on that, Carl, as well. Good. Okay, good deals coming in. Okay, excellent. And second question, and again, to be honest, we've only been friends for, sure, about 10 odd minutes here. And if we've just met face to face, there's no way I'd ask this up front. But I really do need to know so I can help you. What's the biggest problem that you'd say you have right now in your practice? What's the number one biggest problem or challenge that you have in your practice right now? Just grab a sip of water while you're typing there. Okay, delegating. Good. Finding more of the right clients. Good. Finding more clients. Getting the right type of introductions here. Okay. So it's around staff management and getting more clients. That seems to be the main themes here. Okay. So this webinar we're covering this morning, must have been about 2 years ago, a client of mine came to me and said, Rudy, I want to build my practice as a machine that makes money. And then I want to extract myself from it. And what's the fastest way to get there? And so he asked me this great question, but the problem with the question is, you can't really answer a deep question like that in 30 seconds. So I built this webinar presentation to give him and everyone else the answer. Now, we're not going to cover everything, but we are going to cover enough for you to understand what the answers are. So we're going to be moving really fast this morning, and if it is helpful for you at the end, I'd be happy to give you a recording of this presentation if I've pushed the right buttons here. So if it comes out, I'd be happy to give you that. Would that be helpful for you? Just type in a yes there if that would be useful for you. Okay, good. And then at the end, we'll get to the Q&A. And please just remind me to give you the recording, and I'll get that to you as soon as it's online. Okay, good stuff. So there's a question. Now, as accountants, I absolutely believe that we're a pretty intelligent bunch on the whole. We've invested years into studying, and on top of that, we are prepared to work really hard. We really do put in the blood, the sweat, and the tears. Yet, we're generally speaking either time poor or, quite frankly, money poor. So considering what we put in as opposed to what we get out, something is not adding up there for me. So the question here, why do you think so many partners or owners of accountancy practices struggle so much? Go ahead and type in there what you reckon this is. Hey, Arthur's not heard your response from you this morning yet. Welcome onto this presentation, and hey, let's hear you as well. What do you reckon, why so many partners, practice owners struggle? Okay, not enough time, can't get the right staff, don't know how to delegate, lack of systems, we focus more in the service and not the profit. Traditionally, the ethos has been all about personal delivery of a service. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me share with you my thoughts on this. So we've got these 4 quadrants. Top letter is E, which stands for employed or employee. Then we have the next quadrant SE, which stands for self-employed. Next quadrant's BO for business owner. And that last quadrant there, I for investor. Now, I believe that we all of us, at some point in our lives we go to school. So really above the top left-hand E, there should be a small little S. So we go to school, and then at some point we become an employee or employed. And what happens is that somebody teaches us to do something with our hands in front of our body. Now, if I'm a plumber, I'm busy plumbing, my hands are in front of my body, I'm doing it. If I'm a bookkeeper, my hands are in front of me on a keyboard, I'm tapping away. So employee, my hands in front of my body. Then one day I make this big jump into self-employed. Now that could either be a very brave jump into I start my own practice, or I join a partnership, but there's a level of now I'm self-employed. Fantastic. Big jump. But the main similarity between employee and self-employed is that my hands are still in front of my body. I'm the one doing it with my hands. And that's the starting point. Then the next big jump, and most of my clients are busy with this jump, is where we go from self-employed to business owner. And what happens here is that we take those hands from in front of your body, and with you kicking and screaming, we tie those hands behind your back. And then we say, okay, run this business the same or better than you did before with your hands tied behind your back. Now, this is a very different skill set. And the 2 things that you will absolutely get right in the BO quadrant is how do I find the right team? And the second thing there is how do I put the right systems in place in this business? And when you can give yourself a scoring of 10 out of 10 in the business owner quadrant I've got a 10 out of 10 for an amazing A+ team, and I've got fantastic systems which my team can rely on. That's the point where essentially, to a large extent, you've built this, shall we say, this cash machine that to a large extent can operate without you. And when you've learned how to do that and you've done it, that's when you make that last jump into the investor quadrant. And that is a fantastic place to be in. Clients of mine who've made that jump, oh, it's just a different world. Because in the investor quadrant, you don't exchange time for money anymore. You've built that machine and it's doing its job for you. And over the years, I've only ever had one client who jumped into the investor quadrant who said, I'm finished, I'm going to retire. What everyone else have done is that, because essentially they've now learned how to ride the bicycle, they've mastered that. And once you can ride a bicycle, you can ride any other bicycle. And what they start doing here is what I call, they start playing Monopoly. Now that means they buy other practices and they build them up. They start businesses from scratch, or it can just be other commercial businesses that they buy and transform. But point is, when you're in the investor quadrant, you've got the knowledge base on how to do that. And what an incredible place to be in. And that is really the place of choice and freedom. So my thinking about one of the big reasons why partners or owners of accountancy practice are stuck and struggle is because we are on this jump somewhere between self-employed and business owner. And we haven't yet figured out well, we haven't yet given ourselves or gotten to the point where we can give ourselves a 10 out of 10 for that business owner quadrant. We're somewhere a 0 to 10 rating between self-employed and business owner, and well, we don't know what we don't know, so we're a bit stuck on that treadmill. And I reckon that's where we're at. Now, another thing, a lot of people say, well, why is it so hard to make the shift from the one quadrant to the next? And a lot of people say, well, it's all about mindset. You just need to think more positively. Now, yes, that is part of the answer, sure, but that's definitely not the whole answer. And, let me be really clear about this. Mindset is not the biggest problem. And if you have your own practice and you're feeling stuck, I don't believe that mindset is the main problem. A positive attitude is not going to fix this. If you're feeling stuck and frustrated in your practice right now, stop beating yourself up, because it is not you. It's not your fault. So let me explain it this way. If I get into my car and let's say it's nighttime, I get in this car, the steering wheel is broken, the brakes are not working, the lights aren't working. Now, I could choose not to drive this car and rather take a taxi, but let's say that I choose to drive this car. So I turn the key and I drive this car, nighttime. I'm going to drive down the road, but I'm going to absolutely hate that experience. It's going to be scary. I'm going to be sweating, tense. I'd rather want to jump out of that car and run away, because the car that I'm driving is broken. That's pretty simple and obvious. And the same is true with your practice. If the model that you're driving in your business is, I'll call this broken, then things just aren't going to work. And you'll feel tense and stressed and all of those things. So it's not mindset, it is the model. The model your practice is built on. And for me, model beats mindset every single time. And also, if someone has the wrong model and you get them all revved up, you know what happens? And you've probably seen this with some of your own clients. They fail even faster. So I totally believe that this is a fact, that you've been set up to fail. If you're frustrated with where you're at, you're working long hours, your cash flow is tight, your profits aren't where they need to be, you can't find the right team or the right clients or enough of them, no one's deliberately trying to ruin our lives as practice owners. The fact is that the system you either bought into, or the training you've had from when you were very young in this industry, and that you brought with you when you set up your own practice and you saw what everyone else was doing, that has flaws. And those flaws limit you in 3 major areas. It limits you in team, it limits your growth, and it limits what I'll call your systems. And those 3 things ultimately dramatically limit the amount of money and the time you take from the practice. So let's look at the 3 signs of a broken model. And please write this down as we go now, because I'm going to ask you a couple of questions on this in about a minute or so. So just write this down, make sure you've got pen and paper, write this down as we go through the next bits. So the 3 signs of a broken model, you're always hoping for growth. So in other words, there's no real growth strategy. Yes, we get referrals and we do a bit of this and a bit of that, but a real written down tactical marketing plan in place for growth, probably don't have that. Second sign of broken model is that your team is over-reliant on you. In other words, they need you there all the time and you need them. And the third bit here, the systems are sweaty. Now, obviously, you've gotten to where you are because you have got systems in place, but things aren't properly systemized throughout. And ultimately, that means that everyone is working way too hard to get the job done. And what this usually means is that ultimately, things fall back onto your shoulders to get it sorted. And the result of all of this is that you're seriously limiting your profit and massively increasing the time you spend in the business. So if you're hoping for growth and your team are over-reliant, then you are stuck. You're not moving anywhere and nobody to help you get there. If your team is over-reliant and your system's sweaty, then you're drowning. You've got all this pressure on top of you and it feels like there's no way out. And then if your systems are sweaty and you're hoping for growth, then you're grafting really hard. In other words, working way too hard with the sweat and moving nowhere. So which of those three would you say is costing you the most and giving you the most pain right now? So I'll just go back one slide. Which one of those, one or more of those three corners there is giving you the most grief, the most pain? So go ahead, type that into your chat box there. Which one of those or more is causing you the most pain and costing you the most? Is it the growth corner, the team corner, or the systems corner? Good. Team, growth, hoping for growth, systems. Yep, team from Athos, Desmond, systems corner, Cole, around team and sweaty systems. John's hoping for growth and sweaty systems. Nisa, team. Yeah, good. Okay. So those are the three things that are limiting you. So if we could flip them around, on the one hand, hoping for growth to something else, or a dependent team to something else, or from sweat systems to something else. When we do that, the lid comes off and you can make more money and win back more time for you and your practice. So this online training today is about making those three strategic shifts. And for clients of mine who've made that jump to the investor quadrant, they've gone through it and they've put the systems in place, changed how they do things to enable them to shift properly into the business owner quadrant to be able to make that investor jump. So shift one, hoping for growth and taking that to predictable growth. Shift two is going from an over-reliant team to a self-reliant team. And then shift number three is going from sweat systems to scalable systems. So let's talk about the first shift, from hoping for growth to predictable growth. And more specifically, we're going to look at how to find introducers that want to refer business to your accountancy practice. Now, with our Black Belt programs, we work with our clients, we've got 4 keys to making the shift from hope for growth to predictable growth. So those 4 keys, key 1 is all about pricing. How do you boost your margins, communicate value, and maximize prices. Key number 2 is about marketing. How do we generate the right leads? How do we nurture our prospects? And how do we get referrals and introducers right? Key number 3, how do we disqualify the bad prospects? How do we sell value? And how do we increase our conversions? And then key number 4, which our Black Belt clients put in place, all around mergers and acquisitions. How do we accelerate the growth? How do we diversify our offering? And how do we amplify our returns? So this morning's training, we are going to be looking at the introducer strategy that falls under the marketing section. So before we get into the introducer strategy I have, let's just look at the impacts that a few key introducers can have in your practice. So you're really busy doing what you do, and because of that you often don't have time to focus on client generation activities. And I think that's probably true for a whole lot of us. And then while you're busy doing what you're doing, wouldn't it be great to have somebody else doing that thinking and that client generation for you out there? And that's what key introducers can do for you. Because once you've got 2 or 3 of them in place, you can have a consistent stream of new clients coming into your practice all the time. And that's what they can help with. So question here, who currently has introducers who consistently refer business to them? So go ahead, either type a yes or a no there if you've already got this in place. And if no, then just type an N. Okay. Good. Okay, we've got a few yeses and a few nos. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so if you don't have key introducers in place for your practice, then you're always on the lookout for one more client. You're too busy yourself to focus on bringing new business into the practice. And this means that new clients are coming in, but it's a trickle, a few here, a few there, and there's nothing consistently. But on the other hand, if we did have a few key introducers in place, then you don't have worries about new clients because you can always rely on your introducers as a source for introductions. And you're still busy doing what you're doing, but at least new business is coming in the background. And what this means is that instead of a trickle, you'll have a consistent stream of new clients coming into your practice. Now, what could a consistent stream of new clients from introducers do for you? Just have a think about that. I think for most of us, it would be fantastic, a bit like paradise if we had a consistent stream of new clients. So here is a 6-step introducer process. Now, I'll say up front, nothing I'm covering here is magic. It is often about systemizing and systematically, step by step, following a process. So the 6-step introducer process. Step 1, which might seem really obvious, is to build solid relationships over time. You want to constantly be networking and building new relationships whenever you can. Number 2 is to get yourself out there. And when you do this, you don't just want to be a number in a group. Where you can, take the lead, establish authority, show people that you are somebody worth having a relationship with. So one of our clients, he heads up his local chamber of commerce, so he's been selected to be there, whatever it's called, the president or whatever. Another black belt client is quite actively involved with numerous local sports clubs. So it is about making the time and getting out there and being noticed, stepping into the limelight and making sure that people want to speak to you. And that means you get out there. Number 3, this has to do with identify key introducers. And typically I found from working with my clients that there's 3 introducers or way of introducers that work better than others. And again, you may have different experiences, but I'll share my experience here with you. So for a lot of people, bank managers, one of my clients has a great relationship with his local Barclays manager, was constantly referring business his way. Another practice have their, I think it's Barclays as well, or I can't remember which bank it is, but their bank managers actually come to their premises to have conferences. So, they've really made a big job with that. So bank managers can be one of those sets of introducers. Another one, IFAs. Often they have clients that will need extra work and they can be passed on to you, so that could be another option as well. And the third one, although it's probably more networking, but it's a form of introduce as well, BNI. You know, and these types of networking groups are often great places to build relationships with potential introducers. But those are three, I would say only three, they're three big S, and there are plenty of others that might work just as well. And again, in order to make any strategy work for you, you have to pick that strategy and focus on it. I had one of my clients, a guy called Andrew Rhodes in London, his firm is Sobel Rhodes. He has spent years and years and years focusing on networking introducers. And today, he has a phenomenal network of introducers and introductions. And I remember him coming to me a while ago and saying, there's actually too much to cope with. Now, you know, what a great problem to have. But it was a strategy that he picked on and he mastered it, and he's constantly reading more books about how to make it better. He's constantly getting out there and meeting more people, cross-referring to others. So, you know, this is not a strategy that you can just say, well, that sounds nice and I think I'll see if I can get around to it at some point. That is not how any of these strategies will work. It really has to be a strategy that you pick, stick with it, and because you're sticking with it and you're determined to master it, yes, then it'll have a fighting chance to work. So now you've identified your key introducer types. So the next question is, you know, where do I find these people? Now, quite frankly, one simple way, Google. Networking events are great ways to find people. Get out there and get yourself out there and meet them. Before I go to the next slide, another way, let's say that you decided that you want to meet your local bank managers. Literally go and Google banks, get hold of phone numbers, phone people up, and make appointments to go and see them. Or if it's going to be IFAs, you know, Google, create a list of these people, call them up, and often a fantastic strategy is to, in the initial conversation, say, hey, I'd like to meet up with you because I could potentially refer some of my clients to you. And I think there's going to be fairly few business people who will be able to decline an offer like that. So from your side, it's quite easy to make those initial conversations happen or initial meetings. Now, another step here, the power of reciprocation. And now, I think most of us know about the book called The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. And one of his points in there was the power of reciprocation, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So in other words, you know, if you do something good for somebody, then they'll feel more inclined to do something good back for you. So once you've got your key introducers, you definitely want to build relationships with them over time, and you want to give to them. You know, give them introductions, but it could be, you know, take them out for lunch, take them to watch a football game, play golf, build that relationship and give. You know, as the BNI saying is, givers gain, and that very much works with introducers as well. And then the sixth step here is track the numbers. And again, remember, Andrew Rhodes having a very strong point about this because he had been doing this kind of thing for years and years and years. And a key for him was this one, track the numbers. You know, he would use a simple spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet, and he would record every introducer and how many referrals he gave to them. So who he gave to them as referral, on what dates, so that he kept track of that. But then the other side of that equation was how many people did they give to him. And then of those, how many of the people that he referred to them actually became clients of them. And on his side, how many of the introductions they gave him became clients of his. Because like he said, you know, if you don't actually keep track of this, you start forgetting who you've given where, and often it doesn't actually balance out. So it's really important to track the numbers, and if you notice that you're giving much more than you're receiving, then you need to call up the person, sit them down for a bit of a conversation and say, hey, this is not really working, is it? And it either starts working or you move on. Okay, so let's see, who currently uses a process like this to identify key introducers, but to build those introducer relationships. So go ahead, if that is you, if we're using 6 steps quite like this, it's a yes. It could be a bit of a maybe if it's not, if it's some of it, but not quite all of it, or it could be a no if it's not at all. So go ahead and then just type in either a yes or a maybe or a no. Okay, great. So we got some yeses, some nos, some of it. Okay, fantastic. And this even says a 4 out of 6. Fantastic. Good. Okay, so we've got a range there from no to some of it to yes. So good. So, you know, if it's not 100% yes, then have a look at what is missing for you and bring in those steps. Make it better. And yeah, we've got one of our clients, you know, Nas, and he's in the south somewhere. My introducer is a manager at our local bank. We regularly meet up to refer business to each other, and so far this year, he's referred 30,000 of fees to me. So it can definitely work. And yeah, we've got a bit of a funny looking screen, but in this section so far, what would you say has been your biggest takeaways or biggest learnings, notice or share? So just go type in there, what's been the biggest takeaway for you? Now that might be, as far as this section is concerned, I'm spot on, and that makes me happy. Or it might be, I don't know, we need to track our numbers, or whatever it might be so far. What's been your biggest takeaway so far this morning in this presentation so far? So go ahead and type that in there for us. Good. And Ian, I can see that you're on this call as well this morning, so hey, great to have you on this call. Let us know what's been your biggest takeaway from that as well. So go ahead and type that in there. What's been your biggest takeaway? Okay. Need to get out more. We already have a good system. Need to meet more introducers. Okay. Need to get out more. Need to implement systematic approach and track the numbers. I should get out a little more. Okay. Good stuff. Fantastic. Okay. Now, next slide. So right now, I'm interested in you. So in relation to the shift from hope for growth to predictable growth, you know, the whole shift, not just necessarily this one bit that we covered this morning, but the whole shift. You know, for a lot of us, we're in this hope phase doing what we're doing. So hope to predictable, where are you now and what's the long-term result if you stay there? So just go ahead and type into the chat box there, are you more towards the hope side of things? Are you more towards the predictable side of things? Where are you at the moment? Okay, good. More hope, hope. Yeah, it seems to be more hopes here. Okay, so yeah, and you know, don't type it in there, but the question for you is, what's the long-term result if you stay there? And really, you know, how long have you already been at that phase? Because it is a bit like a treadmill. You know, it's an old saying, you're stuck on a treadmill, but actually it's not that much fun. Because I believe very much that, you know, when you change from hope for growth to predictable, you know, everything gets easier. And that is what I want for you. And my job today is to help you make 3 or 4 really smart decisions. So right now, you've got a choice to make. You can keep hoping for growth, being stressed out with loads to do, always wanting one more client, or you can make a decision draw a line in the sand and say, I need to make our growth predictable. So what's it going to be? I'll give you 5 seconds right now. Make a choice. And at the end of the day, I don't care what you choose. It's your practice, your business, it's your life. It's not mine. Now, obviously, I think that predictable growth is going to get you the results that you want, but I need you to make a choice. And as I said, my job today is to help you make 3 or 4 really smart decisions. So the first decision, are you going to keep hoping or are you going to make it predictable? So just type in there. We would love to know what your decision is. Make a decision and type it in there for us. Okay. Predictable. Okay. Excellent. And when we get this right, I believe that's how we find more introducers for your practice. We're going to cover strengthen your client relationships and extract yourself from day-to-day operations. So let's take a look at our second strategic shift. And this is going from an over-reliant team to a self-reliant team. Yeah, Carl, I just saw your note here, predictable is the way forward. Absolutely. For me, it's about getting to the place of freedom and choice, and getting to the second part of the shift will definitely get us there. Okay, so back to shift number 2, from over-reliant team to self-reliant team. So in our black belt program that we do with our clients, again, we've got 4 big keys to making the shift from over-reliant team to self-reliant team. Now, the first key there is about staff. So in other words, do you actually know what a profitable model looks like? For me, when I look at profitable model, I have this benchmark range of between 20 and 40% net profit before partners packages. Now, if we're doing less than 20% net profit before partners package, we're doing something obviously wrong, and there's going to be low-hanging fruit to pick from. If we're doing 40% plus, we're on the right track. Then 50% is excellent, and we have a few superstars at 60% plus. So for me, that's what a profitable model looks like. And in this key, we share with our black belt members how you do this. Which team members do you need to have in place, who's doing what, how it all fits together. Then we also look at how do we recruit A-plus players. And because for me as a business owner, you are either looking forwards building your business, your practice, or you're looking backwards fixing your team and their problems. But you can't be doing both those things at the same time. If you have a B or a C team behind you, that's okay. Stop whinging and moaning about it and keep on working the long hours. So an A-plus team is vitally important to your freedom. And then also under this key, we look at how do we go about navigating outsourcing, because in our economy these days, it's probably wants to form a part of your practice. I'm not saying it has to, but it might just want to. And there's plenty of ways to get this wrong and burn your fingers, and there's plenty of ways to get it right. Ian, see your comment there? Okay, that's fantastic. Thanks very much. Okay, that's the first key. Second key has to do with staff management. This whole thing of, well, I've got these people, but I don't know how to delegate effectively. Or, I'm asking them to do stuff and they just don't do it. So yeah, we look at how do you maximize your management, and my apology for the letters being a bit funny there for some reason, but hey, how do we maximize your management? How do we put a team meeting rhythm in place? Because team meeting rhythm is like a heartbeat, and if we've got a slow or non-existing heartbeat, we're dead. And then number 3 there, how do you delegate effectively? How do you get the most from your people? How do you hold them accountable? Vital keys. Key number 3, all about time management, because the biggest thing probably for every one of our new clients when they start with us is, I don't have time. So we've got a very robust process in the first 4 to 12 weeks to help you gain time to start working on your practice. So yeah, we look at how do you drive your diary? How do you go about eliminating tasks that you really should not be doing? And quite frankly, how do you start working less? And then key number 4, it's all about productivity. So how do we go about terminating distractions? I have 1,000 emails and I haven't got time to deal with it. So how do you go about putting a system in place to filter your emails so you have a quarter or a fifth of the number of emails to deal with? And how do you go about increasing your focus? So those are the 4 big keys under this section. And today we are going to take a deep dive on how you can maximize management and extract yourself much more from the day-to-day activities. And I'm going to share with you a concept called octopus management. So I think it was about February this year. One of my black belt clients, and they're a full partner practice in Liverpool, they were essentially spiraling into chaos. Now that might be a bit extremely putting it, but the 4 partners of the practice found themselves getting more and more involved in the day-to-day activities of the practice, and also because at the time they were understaffed. And instead of them having focused to build their practice, they were drawn into tasks that ended up taking far too much of their time and for very little reward. And something needed to be done, which is why really with them I introduced this concept that I created and I call it octopus management. With them, their data's spiraled completely out of control. Their work in progress at one point, I think they had something like 7,000 open transactions. It was getting silly. So here's a question. How involved are you in the day-to-day activities of your practice? Now, how do we answer this question? We could say very or not very, or maybe we put a percentage number on it, like I'm like 90% involved in the day-to-day doing, so working in my business as opposed to on it. So let's see some of your responses there. How much in your business are you on a day-to-day basis? And let's put a number to it. So 30% would be actually I'm pretty much out of it, or 90% to 100% is I'm smack bang in it. Okay. So we've got here 80%, 80%, 80%, at least 75%. Okay, so pretty high numbers. It takes me back to one of my clients as well. One of the people made this jump to the I quadrant. And when we started out, he was also at least 80%, if not more. And they were a 3-partner practice at the time. And I think it took us a couple of years, but Paul put the systems in place. And although I didn't call it octopus management at the time, this concept he put in place as well. And now Paul is, because the people are in place and the systems are in place, and he's made us jump into the I quadrant. I remember him once saying to me, the first time this happened for him, where a staff member came to him and said to him, Paul, whatever file or whatever was it's on your desk. And he turned around and said, no, there's nothing on my desk. And that's the point that he reached where it literally extracted himself from getting involved with anything. His name wasn't attached to anything anymore. What a great place to be. And actually, a few weeks ago, or no, about a month ago, probably by now, I got a text from Paul saying that him and his family are on their yachts in the Mediterranean on an extended holiday. So hey, what a fantastic place to be. But that's not the place where he started. And Arthur says, yeah, it depends. Some tasks I'm totally remote. Other tasks I'm 100% involved. Yep, Okay, so we know where we're at. So if we are quite involved in the day-to-day activities of our practice, then our time is spent not growing the practice. You found yourself managing an even greater workload than what you should be managing, and you look a bit like that person on the screen there. And the result of all of this is that you feel stressed and frustrated because your practice isn't moving forwards in the way that you know it should be doing. So if you did extract yourself from the day-to-day activities, then your time can be spent on growing the practice. And you'll find that your workload is dramatically reduced because you extract yourself from the day-to-day stuff. And all of that means that you feel much more relaxed and focused as your team take care of things whilst you grow the practice. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, I'm covering one concept here, which is going to be the octopus management. There is more involved. You need an A+ team behind you. You need the systems. But here is one element we're going to cover today. So here's a question, and go ahead and type this in for me there. What could you do if you extracted yourself more from the day-to-day activities? What would you do more of, or where would you focus your time if you could extract yourself more from the day-to-day activities? So go ahead and type that in there. Would love to know. What could you do if you extract yourself more from the day-to-day activities? Would you spend more time growing your business? Would you go more on holidays? I don't know. Good. Yeah. John says focus on growth. Nisa, getting out more to acquire new clients and strengthen relationships. Goal, grow the business. And absolutely, the next phase for most of you is, well, find the team, find the system, or put systems in place, and then focus on the growth so that you can build this. Oh, I don't really like using these words, but it is really building this cash machine. Ian says, seeing my introducers more often. Absolutely. Okay, fantastic. Athos, I would spend more time networking with existing clients and providing news-based fact sheets. Good stuff. Absolutely. It's all about strengthening what we already have and getting more of it. Excellent. Okay, so let's take a look at this octopus project management. Now, if you imagine an octopus, it's got 8 tentacles. And I also want you to imagine that everything you or a member of your team does is part of a project, no matter how big or small. And I often say if it's got more than 2 steps involved, it becomes a project. So for example, if you need to order in cake for somebody's birthday tomorrow, that's a project. And in the same way that setting out an implementation plan for Xero, it's a project. So every tentacle on this octopus is a project, okay? That's the first point to remember here. And your job is ultimately to remove yourself from all of these projects and remain inside the body of the octopus, from where you can control the tentacles. I don't know if control is the right word, but at least you know what's going on. You can bring accountability to it. So in other words, you are the ultimate project manager, okay, in the center there. So in order for this to work, every tentacle must have a project manager, which is not you. And that project manager is responsible for that project, and it's someone that you can hold accountable for the project. So we've got on the screen there, we've got each tentacle is a project. The PM is the project manager. And then you're in the middle being the ultimate project manager. Now, what I often find with a lot of partners is that, I'm involved in every project. I'll even do it. I'm accountable. It's me. And I've got some people involved as well, but there's no real clear, this person is the project manager for that project. Debbie is responsible for this cake. John is responsible for the Zero implementation, whoever it might be, but there needs to be a single name responsible. Now, once there is a person responsible, a project manager per project, and that person has a plan to follow. Now, on that actually, for every project, we need what I call a 5-step plan. Now, this is an interesting one. So what I mean by that is that when you make a person accountable for the project, so we say, I don't know, let's go with a simple one here. Debbie, you're responsible for the project of getting the birthday cake to us on Friday. Then you'll sit down with Debbie and you say to her, in less than a minute, sit here with me, write down what are the 5 biggest steps to make this project happen. And she'll go, well, I reckon I need to phone up the bakery, I need to place an order, confirm that they will deliver it, whatever. She's going to come up with 5 steps. But the key here is in less than a minute or less than 2 minutes, if it's something bigger. But very, very quickly, at least 5 steps, probably 5 to 10 steps of what do you reckon needs to happen to make this happen. If it's going to be, I've got to implement the Zero project, exactly the same. In less than 2 minutes, write down for me what you think are the 5 to 10 biggest things to make this happen. Zero, or I reckon I need to research, I need to call Zero and research this. I need to look at who's going to be involved with this thing. I need to look at how we transition data across from what we're currently using. I need to look at what we say to our clients to move them across, whatever it might be. But the person sits down with you and in less than 2 minutes, writes down what they reckon the 5 to 10 biggest things are to make this thing implement, or to implement this project. Now, they very well might miss some things, as they do their research and they get a proper project plan together. But what often happens is that I'll say to somebody, listen, you're responsible for implementing Zero, and then 3 weeks later, I don't actually know what's happening. I don't know where we're at. I don't know if anything's happened. And also what the other side of that is that the person we've asked to be responsible for it, if we've actually asked a single person, full marks, we've done that, but they're not really clear in their heads on actually what they're supposed to be doing. And by having this 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 to 10 step plan initially, we can very quickly figure out if they've missing an obvious gap in there. And we can say, hey, what about X, Y, and Z? I remember recently, it was a new virtual assistant of mine, and I asked her, at the time we needed a new video editor, and I asked her to go ahead and find me a video editor. Now, had I done that myself, I would have had that probably completed in about an hour, but it's a new person, it's her job. So I said to her, please will you get hold of us of a new video editor? And she disappeared. And about 2 weeks later, I remembered about this. I said, hey, what's the latest in this? And she said, well, no, I haven't found anybody yet. And I thought to myself, well, that's strange, but okay. Left it for another 2 weeks, and I went back, no, wait, what's going on? Where are we at? And what I realized, because she said to me, well, I looked at this place, and I looked at that place, and this website, but there is a website called Upwork.com, where there are absolutely millions of people registered, and if we're going to find a video editor, we will find them there. And when I asked her 4 weeks later, tell me what you've done, the glaringly obvious place that she missed was that website Upwork. She never actually placed an ad on that site because she didn't know about this site. Now, had I on day 1 sat down with her and said to her, tell me, if you're going to find us a video editor, tell me where you're going to go looking, in less than 2 minutes, I would have realized that she didn't know about this site. And I could have said to her, hey, what about Upwork.com? And she would have said, oh, fantastic. And within a week, we would probably have had a video editor, or within a few days. But because I missed my 5-step plan in less than 2 minutes, I'm responsible for it taking 4 to 5 weeks before we found a video editor. So it doesn't matter how big the project is. You can always break it down to 2 minutes. Tell me your 5 to 10 biggest steps. And one of the steps might be I need to research Zero. or what needs to happen. Now, within that step, she's going to go away and figure out a whole lot of different things to be done in that. But as a main high-level step, you've got to research 0, whatever it might be. Absolutely right. You're 100% on track. Well done. So that is what I call octopus management, because your job is to be in the body of the octopus. You extract yourself from the projects, but being the ultimate project manager, you hold your specific project managers per project accountable. So initially it's the tell me your 5-step plan. It's probably going to go into, well, give me a bit more detailed plan with milestones, and then you hold them accountable to make that happen. But when you start doing this kind of thinking and doing it, approaching it in this way, fairly quickly, I absolutely promise you, you will start extracting yourself from these projects. So this is one tool. There are many more, but it's one big one. So tell me, who currently has a management process like this in place, or even just this way of thinking or approaching projects? So just go ahead and type in yes, kind of, maybe, no. Because I know when, this client in Liverpool, when they started applying this kind of thinking, suddenly debtors had a very specific project manager to it. There was a process that was planned beforehand and accountability came in. Same with the work in progress. And very, very quickly, because they brought that accountability to the table in this format, things shifted away from chaos very, very quickly. Okay, so we've got a range of answers here from no to kind of. Okay, fantastic. And, well, actually, as Helene, this partner at the Liverpool practice, using the octopus management technique, parts of our practice went from what felt like unorganized chaos to complete control in just under 60 days. Good. And Ian, like you say, the partners are almost always involved in any important projects. And that's a great starting point. But if we've got the management team, the more we can delegate and train and trust downwards, the more freer you guys are at the top to get on with much higher level, more essential things. So good. So in this section, what would you say has been your biggest takeaways? What have you learned, noticed, or what would you like to share? So just go ahead and type that in there for us. Your biggest takeaways in this section so far, or anything so far that we've covered. And as you're busy typing there, I'm just going to have a sip of my coffee here. Good. Yeah. Okay, so the 5-step project management, use of a structured system for each project. And it's interesting to me because although we're covering this specific topic here, the systemized way, it's actually very simple in hindsight. The systemized way of thinking that we apply to this one thing here is the same kind of systemized thinking that we apply to all those keys that I've mentioned so far that we put into place. Because for me, it's often going back to the basics, the simple things, if we take it in a structured approach, one step at a time, it's ridiculous how fast things start happening. Ian says we need to change the way we do things, and octopus management is the key. Well, Ian, I know that you're a client of mine, and I'm going to be sharing quite a lot more keys with you, but this is definitely one of them. And it's in hindsight, it's so blimmin' simple and obvious. But yeah, we'll start creating new habits with that. Okay, good. So again, I'm interested in you. Where are you, and what's the long-term result if you stay there? And that's the whole shift from dependent team to self-reliant team. Where are you now? Are you, at this stage of the game, are you more towards the dependent side, or are you more towards the self-reliant side? So just go ahead and type that in there for us. Let's see where you are. Where's your team spending most of the time at the moment? On the dependent side of the whole thing, or more on the self-reliance? Okay, so yes, we've got a few dependents coming in here. And you know, that whole thing of moving into the business owner quadrant and finally the investor quadrant, where that's the place where freedom and choice lives. Freedom and choice doesn't live in the business owner or the self-employed quadrants. Not really. It lives in the investor quadrant. And that's why it's so important that we get these things right so we can shift there. And it can be done in a matter of, the fastest I've ever had any client get there was about 12 months. So it can be done in 12 months or a couple of years. But you know, freedom, it's possible and it's not that far away. So again, yeah, chaos, but we'll be shifting. Good stuff, Nisa. And yes, staff are dependent on the partners, as Ian says. Yeah, Ian, and we'll be working on that, absolutely, because this is a massive key. Okay, so when you switch from over-reliant team to self-reliant team, you know, when you do that, everything gets easier. And that is what I want for you. So right now, again, you've got a choice to make. You can keep on having an overly dependent team, always working in the practice and forever playing catch-up, or you can make a decision, draw a line in the sand, and say, you know, I need to make my team become self-reliant. So what's it going to be? I'm going to give you 5 seconds here. Make a choice. And again, I don't care what you choose. Now, obviously, I think a self-reliant team is going to get you the results you want, but I want you to make a choice. Because my job today is to help you make 3 or 4 really smart decisions. And this is the second decision. Now, is your team going to be dependent, or are they going to become self-reliant? So go ahead and type for me there. What is the choice that I make? Ian, you're quite right. I do know the answer. Nisa, Team Octopus. I'm loving the humor that's coming through, yeah? But yeah, absolutely. You know, if you're serious about creating freedom in your life, and why not? You know, it goes right back to, as accountants, we work blimmin' hard. We're prepared to put the blood, sweat, and tears in. We're an intelligent bunch. And freedom is the golden bit at the end of the rainbow. And you can make it happen. It is possible. And you're going to get that with a self-reliant team. Absolutely. And, you know, that for me is how you find more introducers for your practice, strengthen your client relationships, and extract yourself from the day-to-day operations. So let's go into our third shift here. Here we're going to go from sweat systems to scalable systems. And that's that. So instead of it always coming back onto your shoulders, your systems are scalable. So in other words, the practice is streamlined and there's space for growth. So to go from sweat to scalable systems, you'd be surprised to know, again, we've got 4 keys to making this shift from sweat to scalable systems. Key number 1 here for me is all around lockup. You know, how do we go about decreasing our debtors and actually making it negative? Working your work in progress and getting your turnaround days right down. And how do you systemize this entire lockup evil? Key number 2 is all around customer service. You know, how do we onboard new clients effectively? What's our process for that for the first 90 days? Build your RCs. And actually, I'm not going to tell you right now what that means because we're going to cover that point in this next content section. And then how do we maximize satisfaction? Key number 3, how do we measure efficiently? How do we direct accordingly? And how do we go about tracking frequently? And then key number 4, how do we systemize frequently? How do we create this whole paperless office? And how do we leverage the cloud? And today we're going to draw really deep into the difference between what I call TCs and RCs and why this is so important when strengthening client relationships. So I'll explain to you shortly what I'm talking about with those things. Okay, so there's key number 2. So, without sounding all doom and gloom, there are some big changes happening in our industry. Now, I think we all know that the Big Four are making moves to take a sizable share of our marketplace. And there's online firms that are offering bookkeeping for, I don't know, 29 or 30 pounds a month. They're also growing at an increasing rate. And what this means is that there's a very real need to safeguard your clients. And the way to do that, that is sustainable in the long term, is through excellent customer service. So let's see, who currently has a strong customer service systemized strategy in place to safeguard their clients? So in other words, the whole thing has been systemized step by step. Let's see if that is you. So if you've got a current, can I just go to check with I've had somebody say that they can't hear me. Is that true for all of you or just for that one individual? Okay, no, it's just for that one individual. Okay, so yeah, as Nis says, it's a work in progress. Let me just quickly respond to Ian here, because he says he can't hear me, but I believe the others can, so okay, good. Okay, so it's a work in progress, not quite yet. Okay, good. So let's look then at this whole systemized process and how we get that sorted. Now, without a strong customer service strategy, then our clients are open to attack. You're not maximizing your revenue as client retention drops, and so does your revenue. And both of which means you're stressed out and worried about the future of your clients. Now, if you do have a good, strong, systemized customer service strategy in place, then your clients are safeguarded. You maximize your revenue. And this means that you can feel relaxed and optimistic about the future of your practice. So, don't worry typing this one in, but if you think about it, what could a solid customer service strategy do for you and your practice? I think for most of us, it'll help us safeguard our clients, client retention, get more word of mouth, that kind of thing. So let's have a look here at TCs versus RCs. Now, TC stands for transactional connections versus relational connections. Now, a transactional connection is when I call you up and we discuss your accounts, or I call you up and we have a query about your tax, or you come and see me at the end of the year and we review your financials. Those are all transactional connections. And this is very much related to what we do for a living. When it comes to building, maintaining, or improving relationships, transactional connections, the TCs, add very little value and very little bonding to our relationships. On the other hand, we have the RC, so those are the relational connections. And these have almost nothing to do with the work that we do. They're different from transactional connections, TCs, and these happen, for example, when we meet up for lunch, when you send them a birthday card, when we go to the cricket grounds together. These are purely social and relational. So relational connections, the RCs, add massive value and massive bonding to our relationship. So I guess it wouldn't surprise you to know that most accountancy practices focus big time on TCs, the transactional connections, and neglect the RCs, the relational connections. So let me share with you a hypothetical example, very hypothetical, of why RCs, the relational connections, are so important. So let's say that you sign a new client, and you know, all happy days, we start out with a honeymoon relationship that is a 10 out of 10 on day one. Now, over the next 3 years, we only have transactional connections, or mainly transactional connections, the TCs, but hardly any or no relational connections, RCs. So what will happen automatically is gravity. Gravity will automatically happen. And from the client's perspective, that what was in the beginning a 10 out of 10 will naturally start dropping down. It'll go to a 9 out of 10, an 8 out of 10, maybe a 7 out of 10. It just naturally reduces. And maybe it could even drop down to a 5 out of 10 or even less. Now see, over time it gets comfortable, but it also gets a bit dull and boring. And then on one sunny day, we have our KPMG or whichever competitor coming into the marketplace. And I guess what starts happening is a bit like having an affair, because they would come in with a 0 out of 10 relationship to start with. But then something happens. There's a sparkle, there's an excitement, a buzz, a newness. It's all fresh and sparkly. And, they had such a good seminar. Or that email they sent us with the latest news is so very interesting. And very quickly, because of this energy, this buzz, this excitement, whatever you want to call it, very quickly they're able to push their 0 out of 10 towards a 3 out of 10, then a 5 out of 10. And then with this last-ditch attempt, they somehow managed to push this new exciting, full of promises relationship to a 6 out of 10. And the problem that you're faced with at that point in time, in the client's eyes, you are a 5 out of 10, and they are a 6 out of 10. And the universe starts wobbling a bit. And guess what your next client conversation might be like? It might be, "Hi, John, my wife has a brother, and the brother has an accountant, and this guy is really cheap, and I really don't want to do this, but ... Or, any one of 101 versions of that story. Now, I know this was just a hypothetical example, but I guess it's most of us have somewhere along the line experienced something like that. And that was just to illustrate this whole concept of the RC and the TC, transactional connections versus relational connections. So let me again give you another example of why, let me just get to the next screen here, why RCs are so important. And again, here's a hypothetical example. So you sign a new client, we start out with this honeymoon relationship, it's 10 out of 10 on day one. Over the next 3 years, we only have transactional connections, but 0 relational connections. Again, gravity will automatically happen, and from the client's perspective, the 10 out of 10 will start dropping down to a lesser number. But now, let's say that in those 3 years, someone comes along and says, "Hey, you know what, let's put some relational connections in here. Let's figure out at which point in time and which relational connections we'll put in." Now again, you and your team could brainstorm for fantastic ideas here on how this could be. But when we build that in, what starts happening is that the transactional connections will happen, but we'll also have the relational connections. And the relational connections counter the gravity that automatically happens. And because we are systematically working on putting the RCs in place, we remember the birthdays with birthday cards. We go out for lunch. If it's an A plus client, it might be you taking them for lunch. If it's a B client, it might be a manager taking them for lunch, whatever it might be. You might have events at your office, client-only events or seminars or networking events, whatever it might be, but you're really working on that relational bit. That's when you counter the gravity. And what you'll find then is that this relationship will maybe drop down to a 9 out of 10, maybe even an 8 out of 10. But because you're working on the relational connections, you will counter gravity. And that is a big, massive key. Because when we do that, if your client is an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 with you, and I don't know, KPMG comes along and builds up the relationship, because they can't push it to the high level that your connection is with your client in that relationship, it's a fantastic way to safeguard your clients. So let's see, who currently has a mixture of systemized TCs and RCs in place in this customer service strategy? You know, TCs, that happens, that's what we do for a living, but it's more about the systemized RCs. Good. Yeah, mixed, some. Okay. And again, you know, very simple to fix this kind of stuff. Go sit down with your team, draw a timeline of 12 months. What are the RCs for our A plus clients, our A clients, our B clients, our C clients? Yeah, as Lisa says, we do this without planning. Absolutely. So bring the plan to it. As Ian says, ad hoc RC approach at present. Yep, totally understandable. Let's bring the system to it. Okay, here's again one of my clients, Alan Rogers in the deep south. You know, we implemented a policy where our managers phoned 5 clients a week just to check in and see how they are, and the results so far have been great. Again, they've systemized how they do this as one way. Okay, what would you say is your biggest takeaways from this section? Learnings noticed or shared. So go ahead, type it in there. What's been your biggest takeaways from this bit? Yeah, systemize the RCs. You need to plan this. Don't want to lose clients, so you need to put a system in place. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Okay, so again, in this bit, I am interested in you. Ian, I love your answer. I'm wasting my time sitting at my desk. Yeah, okay. It is true. It's okay to sit at your desk as long as you're doing the right things at that desk. So in relation to this whole shift from sweat systems to scalable systems, where are you now? And again, question for yourself, you know, what's the long-term result if I stay here on this treadmill? So where are you spending most of your time at the moment? Is it more towards the sweat system side of things or more to the scalable systems? Go ahead and type in the word where you're spending most of your time at the moment, sweat or scalable. Okay, in the middle, more towards the sweat. Good. Okay, middle. Okay, great. Midstream. Okay, good. So when you switch from, when you switch from your sweat systems to your scalable systems, everything gets easier. And again, you know, that's what I want for you. So again, right now you've got a choice to make. You can keep having sweaty systems, you know, everything's done ad hoc, it's disorganized, or you can make a decision, draw a line in the sand, and then say, you know, I need to make my systems scalable. So what's it going to be? You know, make a decision. Take a few seconds, make a decision. And again, I don't care what you do. It's your business, it's your life, your choices. Now, obviously, I think that scalable systems will get you the results you want, but I want you to make the choice. So, and as I said earlier, you know, my job today is to help you make 3 or 4 really smart decisions. So this is a third decision. Are your systems going to be sweaty or scalable? So go ahead and type that in there. What is your choice? Okay, good. Scalable, moving to scalable. Okay, fantastic. And for me, that's how we find more introducers for your practice, strengthen your client relationships, and extract yourself from day-to-day operations. So let's have a recap here. Fact is that you've been set up to fail. No one's deliberately trying to ruin our lives. And the fact is that the system you either bought into or the thinking you bought into when you learned to become an accountant and saw what everybody else was doing, it set you up to fail. And this limits you in 3 areas. It limits your team, your systems, and your growth. And ultimately, this affects the amount of money and time and freedom and choice you take from your practice. So those 3 strategic shifts, number 1 is going from hoping for growth to predictable growth. Shift number 2 is going from over-reliant team to self-reliant team. And shift number 3 is going from sweaty systems to scalable systems. So don't type the following into the chat box, but I want you to just think for yourself and maybe just make a note for yourself there. In 12 months' time, how do you want your practice to look like? So let me give you some ideas here. Look at how many hours you're working, your revenue, your client numbers, your cash flow, your confidence, maybe marketing, your personal income. And how do you want to feel? How do you want your practice to be different? So in 12 months from now, use some of those headings and jot down very quickly there how you'd like it to be. Your ideal. If you had a magic wand in your hand, 12 months from now, how many hours I work, what's our turnover, our profits, client numbers, cash flow, confidence, marketing, personal income, how you want to feel. And then next question, in 10 words or less, describe how it is right now. So using your own shorthand there. At the moment, how many hours do I work? What's our turnover or profit right now? Our client numbers? What's the cash flow like? What's my confidence levels like? What's our marketing like? My personal income? And then, in between those two, you know where you want to get to, and you know where you are. So in between the two, write down all the roadblocks or what's missing or what's slowing you down. And, feel free to use those 3 corners of the triangle, this shift that we spoke about there. Is it to do with team? Is it to do with systems? To do with growth? Because it'll give you a bit of a plan of attack there. Okay, and then I want to wrap up with one last model that I think will be helpful as well. My job, what I do for a living, and I love doing, is to help partners in practice scale their practices and grow if that's what they want, to ultimately get to the place of freedom. So let me show you this ladder here, and you're somewhere on this ladder right now. I've got clients on almost every part of this ladder. So we've got startup, we've got survival phase, we've got stability phase, success phase, the scale phase, and significance phase. Now, time-wise, the very bottom one you're probably doing your spare time, then you're doing it on a part-time basis, then we go to full-time. In what we call success, we're working overtime. Then we get to scale where it's the money for time. And then at the very top end, which I suppose we can link to the investor quadrant, is that free, because you're not swapping time for money anymore. You're free. And, this is not cast in stone, but there's a very rough guide that shifting from survival to stability is roughly around 150K. Now that is not cast in stone, but it's a rough guide. And then we've got another one there at around 500,000. Again, this is not cast in stone and it could be different from one practice to another, but it's a rough guide. And in that phase there, we're busy with hunting. That's the build phase, and that is the flow phase. Now, if you're in the startup or survival phase, and that means under 150,000 turnover, then I've got lots of great content, webinars, blogs coming up on a site, and at those phases, keep interacting with me. But if you're in the build or the flow phase, and you want to make this 3 shifts we spoke about today, and you want to move up this ladder, I want to talk to you just for another second. Because if you're interested in finding out more about how you can go up this ladder, or shifting from the self-employed to the business owner to the investor quadrant, then the next steps are really simple. And that is to have a quick conversation with me, probably literally somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes. And it's a no pressure friendly interrogation. I'll ask you some questions to find out if or how I can help you. And if I can, we'll talk about how. If I can't, I'll try and point you in the right direction, and so you can go talk to somebody else about your challenges. And that session, somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes, is a fairly quick telephone conversation. It goes something like that, We discover the number one thing that's stopping you from building the practice you want. We identify the next best step that will move you to the place you want to be. And you'll get to leave the session with the confidence of knowing exactly what to do in order to implement the practice growth blueprints. And like I said, at the end of those 15, 20 minutes, either I can help you or I can't. And if I can't, I'll point you in the right direction. If I can help you, we can book in another time to talk about how. So if this is of interest to you, the website you go for that is coa.co.uk/session. And on there, if you could spend just 2 to 3 minutes telling me a bit more about you, then I can prep before the session and make our 10 to 20 minutes really, really effective. So, okay, that almost brings us to the end of today. So what I want to do right now before we move into the strategic Q&A is have a sip of water, and then we'll go into that. Also, if you need to leave before we do the Q&A, then hey, thank you very much for joining us today. And that brings us to the Q&A. So I'll have a quick sip of water here. If you have any questions about any of the content we covered today or any other questions, then type it in there. Chances are I might have some answers for you. Now, whether that's anything to do with team related or systems related or on the growth part of the business, go ahead and type your questions in there. I know we've got slightly over time here, so my apology for that. And again, there's a site just so you can see the coa.co.uk/session. Nisa says, can you put back up the page on keys to predictable growth? Nisa, if you don't, well, let me see if I can get there. Predictable growth was towards the beginning of the session. I can do that. Let me see if I can get there quickly. Oh, let's go right back. Predictable growth. That was the team one. That should be on there. Okay, Nisa, I believe you can see that on your screen there, so let me know if you've got any specific questions on any of those. But you can see for me, key one is pricing. And I very often see this, that one of the things we look at is Because under pricing, one of the things that we have that we use with all our clients is what we call a pricing maximizer. And what that is, it's a very simple Excel spreadsheet where we've gone and we've asked all our clients, what are all the services that you sell and how much you charge for it? And what we've done is we've anonymously compiled the spreadsheet with a whole range of different services and products that accountants sell. And then we've got 5 columns next to each service. And the middle 3 columns has the lowest price that any of our clients charge for that specific item or service. There is the maximum price that any of our clients charge for that specific service, and the maximum often are the London prices. And then we have the middle, the average price for that service. So we give you this, and you go into it and you look at the services, and in the very first column, which is an empty column, you go and you enter your own prices for those services. And what often happens that people, as they put in their own prices, they realize there's services on there that either that they don't have, or it's a service that they charge nothing for that somebody else actually charges money for. So it's quite an eye-opener. And then we have the 5th column, which you then do of saying, okay, well, here are my revised new prices. So it's a great starting point for figuring out for realizing what others are charging and what you are charging. And either you're on track, or you're more than they are, or you're way too low. And if that is the case, the whole process will help you to increase your prices, but then also convey that message to your current clients and obviously new clients as well. So pretty powerful. Nisa, can I be cheeky and ask if I can have a copy of that spreadsheet? Of course you can, after you become a client of mine. Because that is that's our IP. So the minute you become a client of mine, we will give you that tool as well as many, many others. But it's very powerful because a lot of people are undercharging without realizing this. And you know, if currently I'm charging £100 for X, and from next week I start charging £110 for the same X, that is a pure £10 of profit. So it's very, very powerful. And that's just one of them in here. So it's very important getting the pricing right. And there's a whole process for marketing. There's a whole process for how we sell. And when we've learned to ride the bicycle, then it's time to probably get into acquisitions and charge for other or sell other services as well. And how do we go about doing that? Good. Okay, so let's get back to the end of this presentation. Let's get page down all the way to the end, almost the end. If there's anyone else with any other questions about anything in your practice that's frustrating you, feel free. Or if, like I said, if you would like a practice growth audit for yourself, a quick 10 to 20 minute conversation where we can figure out what your challenges are, if there's anything that you can put in place straight away to help you, then book yourself in as a session there. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions coming through, so for those of you still on here, I wish you a fantastic rest of the day and rest of the week. If you come across any questions that you have, feel free to email me, and have a great day. All right then, thanks a lot. Bye. Yes, Nisa, I will do. Okay, bye.